You've been trying to fix it, trying to make it work, trying to push life into giving you answers, results, relief. And yet, the harder you try, the heavier everything feels. The mind grows louder, the heart grows tired, peace feels further away than ever. But what if the very effort you believe is necessary is the thing standing in the way? What if the miracle you seek has been waiting, not for more action, but for your surrender? Tonight, I want you to pause, not to learn something new, not to add another technique, not to force another outcome, but to remember something ancient, something simple, something powerful beyond words. There is a law at work in your life that does not respond to strain. It does not hurry because you panic. It does not move faster because you beg. It responds only to belief calmly impressed and then left alone. This law never sleeps, never tires, never questions your worthiness. It simply acts on the last dominant impression you give it. And when you finally stop interfering, when you finally stop wrestling, when you finally do nothing, life begins to arrange itself with a precision no human effort could ever achieve. You see, the greatest mistake people make is believing that miracles are created by force. They believe effort equals reward. They believe struggle equals virtue. They believe exhaustion is proof of faith. But the law of life works in the opposite direction. The more you strain, the more you impress lack. The more you worry, the more you impress fear. The more you chase, the more you declare that what you seek is missing. And the subconscious mind, faithful servant that it is, accepts your declaration and builds reality accordingly. This is why so many pray and yet remain restless. Why they affirm abundance but live in scarcity. Why they speak of peace yet sleep in anxiety. They plant the seed, then dig it up with doubt. They speak the word, then cancel it with fear. They declare faith, then rehearse failure in silence. And the law, impartial and exact, follows the strongest impression every time. Consider the farmer. Once the seed is planted, does he stand over the soil shouting commands? Does he dig it up each morning to see if it has grown? Does he panic because the harvest does not appear overnight? No, he plants, he waters, and then he leaves it alone. He knows the soil is faithful. He knows growth is happening unseen. He knows the night is working. But many of you have forgotten how to trust the soil of your own subconscious. You pray for healing, then monitor every symptom. You affirm prosperity, then obsess over every bill. You ask for guidance, then replay every fear. You cannot serve faith and fear at the same time. The subconscious does not respond to hope mixed with panic. It responds to certainty followed by rest. When you impress the mind with truth and then withdraw your anxious attention, the law begins to operate freely, and it operates silently, effortlessly, without drama. This is why miracles often arrive when you least expect them. Not because they were delayed, but because you finally stopped interfering. There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when the inner struggle ceases, when the mind releases its grip, when the heart stops bracing. And in that moment, the current begins to move. Imagine a river blocked with debris. The water strains, pools, overflows. But remove the obstruction, and the river flows naturally to its destination. You do not push the river. You do not command it. You simply stop blocking it. So too with life. Fear is debris, doubt is debris, control is debris, impatience is debris. Doing nothing means clearing the channel. It does not mean neglect. It does not mean passivity. It does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means ending the inner war. It means refusing to poison the subconscious after you have given it a command. It means saying, "It is done," and not revisiting the matter with anxiety. True power is calm. True authority is still. The subconscious mind does not argue. It does not reason. It does not question. It accepts, and then it acts. When you speak with quiet conviction and then rest, you demonstrate the highest form of faith. Faith is not frantic. Faith is not loud. Faith does not beg. Faith knows, and knowing is always followed by stillness. There is an ancient instruction that says, "Stand still and see." Not run, not strive, not panic. Stand still. Why? Because when the conscious mind stops interfering, the deeper intelligence takes over. Your effort is often the very block to your blessing. Your constant checking uproots the seed. Your constant questioning confuses the impression. Your constant fear delays the expression. But when you release the matter entirely, the law rushes in. This is why those who truly understand this principle often appear effortless. Things fall into place around them. Doors open without force. Timing aligns without strain. Others call it luck, but it is simply non-resistance. The law of life flows fastest where there is the least opposition. You do not command the sun to rise. You do not force your heart to beat. You do not instruct your lungs to breathe. Life knows what to do. And the same intelligence governing these processes is available to you when you stop trying to micromanage it. When you say within yourself, "This is handled," and mean it, the subconscious receives that as final. It begins to arrange events, shift attitudes, move people, open channels. Not all at once, not always visibly, but always accurately. You may not see the movement immediately, but the moment you stop interfering, the process begins. Doing nothing is the courage to trust what you cannot see. It is the decision to stop rehearsing disaster, stop narrating fear, stop predicting failure. Every time you worry, you give the subconscious a new order. Every time you doubt, you redraw the blueprint. No wonder the structure feels unstable. The law cannot build two opposing realities at once. It will always follow the dominant tone. If fear is louder than faith, fear is expressed. If peace becomes dominant, peace appears. The choice is not about effort. It is about which impression you allow to remain undisturbed. Before sleep, when the mind is quiet and receptive, a single calm declaration is enough. Not repeated frantically, not argued internally. One clear impression, then release. Sleep itself is an act of faith. You surrender consciousness and trust that life will continue without your supervision. Why not live that way while awake? Why not say, "I am guided," and stop checking? "I am supplied," and stop panicking? "I am protected," and stop bracing? The law responds to finality. Half belief produces half results. Contradiction produces delay. But a single moment of true conviction, left alone, is more powerful than years of effort. This is why sudden healings occur, why breakthroughs arrive unexpectedly, why solutions appear when you stop searching. The seed was planted long ago. It only needed silence. Many fear that doing nothing means giving up, but it is the opposite. Doing nothing means you trust the law enough not to hover over it. It means you no longer treat the infinite as reluctant or slow. You recognize that resistance, not time, was the only barrier. When you release control, you do not lose power. You return to it. Your actions become guided instead of forced. Your decisions become clear instead of frantic. Stillness sharpens wisdom. Panic clouds it. When the inner noise quiets, intuition speaks, and intuition always knows the way. You do not need to know how it will happen. You do not need to see the path. You do not need to calculate the outcome. The subconscious does not require your strategy. It requires your belief. Once belief is impressed, the mechanism is automatic, like gravity, like growth, like dawn. The miracle is not created, it is allowed, and allowing is an act of trust. Trust is not passive, it is powerful restraint. It is choosing not to sabotage your own decree. Each time you feel the urge to worry, that is the moment to do nothing. Each time fear rises, that is the signal to rest. Each time doubt whispers, that is your cue to return to stillness. You are not ignoring reality. You are choosing which reality to feed. Appearances are the echo of past impressions. Belief shapes what comes next. If you continue to react to appearances, you remain trapped in repetition. But if you respond with calm conviction, you change the future. Doing nothing is how the cycle breaks. The law never withholds. It never delays out of cruelty. It never tests you with struggle. It simply mirrors what you hold to be true. If you hold peace, peace multiplies. If you hold fear, fear expands. Tonight, you are choosing which seed remains in the soil. You do not need to force yourself to believe. You only need to stop contradicting yourself. Say what is true, then leave it alone. Let the night work. Let the unseen arrange. Let the current carry you. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not blocked. You have only been holding too tightly. Release the grip. The moment you do, the machinery of life moves into perfect alignment. And you will look back one day and realize the miracle did not arrive when you tried harder. It arrived when you finally rested. It arrived when you stopped demanding proof. When you stopped asking, when? When you stopped negotiating with fear. There is a quiet intelligence moving beneath the surface of your life right now. It is not rushed. It is not confused. It is not overwhelmed. It knows exactly where you are. It knows exactly what you need. And it knows exactly how to bring it about. But it cannot work freely while you keep interrupting it with anxiety. Every time you say, "What if this doesn't work?" you pull the steering wheel back from hands that never miss. Every time you say, "I need to do more," you imply that the law is insufficient, and the law, obedient as ever, responds accordingly. Doing nothing is not withdrawal, it is alignment. It is saying, "I trust the intelligence that created me to manage what concerns me." There is a profound shift that happens when you stop arguing with life. Your body softens, your breath deepens, your mind loosens its grip, and in that softened state, solutions appear that force could never discover. This is why clarity often comes in silence, why answers arrive in moments of rest, why insight strikes when the mind stops chasing it. The subconscious works best when left undisturbed. It does its finest work in the dark, in stillness, in trust. Just as the seed splits open underground, unseen, your desire is already reorganizing itself into form. But impatience keeps digging, fear keeps checking, doubt keeps interrupting. And so the process resets again and again. You must learn the discipline of rest. Rest is not sleep alone. Rest is the refusal to mentally revisit what you have already handed over. Rest is saying, "I have given the order, and I will not cancel it." The moment you stop repeating the problem, you strengthen the solution. The moment you stop rehearsing lack, abundance finds space to move. The moment you stop fearing loss, security takes root. This is not wishful thinking. It is psychological law. It is spiritual law. The subconscious cannot act on what you have not finalized. When you finalize peace, peace begins to appear everywhere. People respond differently to you. Opportunities show up unexpectedly. Timing shifts, not because you forced anything, but because you stopped resisting the flow. Resistance always looks like effort. Flow always feels like ease. Ease does not mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening in the right order. You were never meant to carry the weight of outcomes, only the clarity of intention. Once intention is set, your work is done. The rest belongs to the law. Think of how effortlessly your body heals a wound. You do not supervise it. You do not command each cell. You trust the process. And because you trust it, it works. Your life operates by the same intelligence. But you have been watching the wound too closely. You have been reopening it with worry. Healing requires peace. So does abundance. So does love. So does guidance. Nothing truly grows under tension. This is why forcing relationships fails. Why chasing opportunity repels it. Why desperate effort backfires. Desperation is a declaration of lack. Calm certainty is a declaration of fulfillment. The law responds to declarations, not desires. You may desire peace, but if you declare chaos through worry, chaos appears. You may desire abundance, but if you declare scarcity through fear, scarcity follows. Doing nothing is how you stop declaring the opposite of what you want. It is how you end self-sabotage. It is how you allow coherence to replace conflict. The mind does not like this at first. It feels unsafe without control. But control was never safety. It was only tension disguised as responsibility. True safety comes from trust. Trust quiets the nervous system. Trust stabilizes thought. Trust aligns action. When you trust, you move when movement is required. You stop when stopping is required. There is no wasted motion. No frantic reaction. Life becomes intelligent again. You begin to notice signs you once missed. Intuition grows clearer. Synchronicity increases. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped drowning it out with fear. Stillness is a signal. It tells the subconscious, "I am finished interfering." And the subconscious responds immediately. It begins assembling the outcome piece by piece. You may not recognize it at first. It rarely arrives as drama. It arrives as quiet correction, a shift in conversation, a chance encounter, a sudden idea. Small adjustments that lead to large change. This is the elegance of the law. It does not announce itself, it arranges, and it does so best when you are no longer watching. This is why letting go feels like relief, because it is alignment returning. The tension you feel is not effort leaving, it is resistance dissolving. You were never meant to live braced for impact. You were meant to move with the current. When you stop pushing upstream, the river carries you effortlessly. That is what doing nothing really means. It means trusting the direction of the flow. It means allowing the next step to reveal itself instead of forcing 10 steps ahead. It means accepting that life is wiser than panic, and it always has been. Tonight, you do not need another affirmation, another strategy, another plan. You need silence after truth. You need rest after conviction. You need to stop revisiting what has already been placed in capable hands. Say it once within yourself, it is done, and then do nothing. Let the night work, let the subconscious build, let the law arrange. You will know it is working not by excitement, but by peace. Peace is the first sign of alignment, and alignment is the birthplace of miracles. Not sudden chaos, not frantic movement, but quiet certainty, the kind that needs no proof, the kind that does not argue, the kind that simply knows. And when you know, you rest. And when you rest, everything begins to fall into place. That knowing does not shout, it does not rush ahead of itself. It settles in you like something remembered rather than learned. And once it settles, there is nothing more to do. This is the moment where most people undo their own miracle. They feel the calm, and then test it. They sense the peace, and then question it. But the law does not respond to testing, it responds to trust. Trust is not something you feel once and then abandon. It is something you allow to remain undisturbed. When doubt tries to re-enter, you do not wrestle with it. You do not argue. You do not analyze. You simply return to stillness. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without noise. It is the space where the deeper mind completes its work. You must understand this clearly. The subconscious does not need your attention to act. It needs your non-interference. Every time you stop yourself from replaying the problem, you strengthen the solution. Every time you refuse to mentally revisit fear, you give the law uninterrupted access. This is why gratitude is so powerful, not because it convinces the universe, but because it convinces you that the matter is settled. When you give thanks, you stop asking. When you stop asking, you stop doubting. And when doubt ends, creation begins. There is no strain in true faith, there is quiet assurance. You do not pace the floor waiting for something you know is certain. You do not obsess over what you trust implicitly. You only obsess when you are unsure. So obsession is not dedication, it is fear wearing effort as a disguise. Release it. The law does not need reminders. It does not forget. It does not require supervision. It operates whether you worry or not. The only question is whether it operates in harmony or resistance. Harmony comes when you step aside. There is a subtle arrogance hidden in constant effort. The belief that life will collapse without your control. But life existed long before your worry, and it will function far better without it. Doing nothing is humility. It is acknowledging there is an intelligence greater than your anxiety. And that intelligence is already at work, right now. Even as you listen, you may not see evidence yet, but evidence always follows alignment, not the other way around. If you wait to feel safe before trusting, you will wait forever. Trust comes first, safety follows. This is the reversal most people never learn. The law responds to belief, not circumstances. Circumstances are the echo. So stop arguing with the echo. Stop trying to fix reflections. Change the source. Then leave it alone. You do not shout at a mirror to smile. You smile and the mirror responds. Life is no different. When you stop demanding, it gives. When you stop chasing, it approaches. When you stop grasping, it places the gift in your hand. But only when your hands are open. Fear clenches the fists. Faith relaxes them. And only relaxed hands can receive. This is why effort often feels like resistance, because it is driven by the fear of not having. But knowing eliminates that fear. When you know, you wait without tension, you move without panic, you act without force, and action taken from calm is always effective. This is another misunderstanding. Doing nothing does not mean you stop living. It means you stop dragging fear into everything you do. You still make the call. You still show up. You still take the step. But you do it without the inner noise, without the silent plea for reassurance, without the desperation to control the outcome. And that changes everything. Because the subconscious is now free to guide you. It will prompt the right thought at the right time, the right word in the right conversation, the right decision when it matters. But it cannot guide a mind that will not be quiet. Noise drowns intuition. Stillness reveals it. This is why the most powerful shifts often come after surrender, after exhaustion, after the final letting go. People call it hitting bottom, but it is often the first moment of true alignment. When the struggle ends, the flow begins. Not because you gave up, but because you finally stopped fighting life. Life does not need to be conquered, it needs to be cooperated with. And cooperation begins with trust. Trust that the seed is growing, trust that the night is working, trust that what you impressed is being expressed, whether you watch or not. So tonight, resist the urge to rehearse the problem one more time. Resist the temptation to check for signs. Signs come to those who are no longer looking for them. Let this be enough. Let the silence after truth be sacred. Let the stillness do its work. You do not need to protect the miracle. You only need to stop interfering with it. The law has heard. The impression is set. Now rest. And as you rest, life will quietly begin placing things where they belong. Not all at once, not with noise, not with force, but with precision. You may wake one morning and feel lighter without knowing why. You may notice a conversation shifting unexpectedly. You may sense an opportunity forming before it fully appears. These are not accidents. They are adjustments. The law does not rearrange everything in a single dramatic moment. It makes 1,000 small corrections that lead you exactly where you need to be. And because you are no longer panicking, you notice them. When fear leaves, awareness returns. Awareness is what allows you to recognize guidance when it arrives. This is why doing nothing is not waiting blindly. It is waiting attentively. There is a difference between passivity and presence. Passivity is numb. Presence is calm and alert. When you are present, you respond instead of react. And response is always wiser than reaction. Reaction belongs to fear. Response belongs to intelligence. As the inner tension dissolves, your decisions become simpler. Not easier in appearance, but clearer in direction. You stop forcing doors that were never meant to open. You stop clinging to paths that no longer fit. And because you are not gripping so tightly, redirection no longer feels like loss. It feels like relief. This is one of the quiet miracles that follow surrender. You no longer mourn what leaves. You trust that whatever exits your life is making room for something better aligned. Clinging creates pain. Flow creates movement. And movement guided by trust always leads forward. You may be tempted to rush ahead again once things begin to improve. That is the old habit returning. When it does, gently remember, the improvement did not come from effort. It came from release. So do not pick the burden back up. You do not need to help the process. You do not need to speed it up. You do not need to manage it. The same intelligence that began the work will complete it. Completion does not require your anxiety. It requires your consent. Consent is given through stillness. Every time you choose peace over panic, you reaffirm that consent. Every time you stop yourself from imagining failure, you protect the impression you planted. You are not suppressing fear. You are starving it. And fear cannot survive without attention. The subconscious follows focus. Where attention goes, energy flows. So when you withdraw attention from the problem loses its fuel. When you place attention on trust, trust expands. This is not denial, it is direction. You are directing the law instead of fighting it. The mind may still try to pull you back into old patterns. That is natural. Patterns dissolve gradually, not instantly. But each time you choose stillness, the old groove weakens. Each time you rest in certainty, the new pathway strengthens. Eventually, peace becomes your default. And from that place, life unfolds with far less resistance. You begin to experience what feels like support, as though something unseen is meeting you halfway. That feeling is not imagination, it is alignment. Alignment feels like ease, like cooperation, like being carried instead of dragged. You were never meant to struggle your way into fulfillment. Struggle only teaches endurance, not harmony. Harmony is learned through trust, and trust is learned by letting go. So if nothing else remains from these words, let this remain. You do not need to force what is already in motion. You do not need to worry what has already been impressed. You do not need to chase what is already finding its way to you. The moment you stop interfering, life completes the pattern, and you will know it not by fireworks but by peace. Peace that arrives without explanation, peace that holds even when circumstances are unfinished. That peace is the sign that the law is working. And once it begins, it does not stop. So let this be the end of effort. Let this be the beginning of trust. Let the silence after belief do its sacred work. Do nothing after this, and watch how gently, how precisely, how inevitably everything falls into place. You will not need to announce it. You will not need to convince anyone. You will simply notice that life feels different. Lighter, more responsive, less resistant. The weight you once carried so tightly will no longer feel like yours to hold. And that is because it never was. You were not meant to manage outcomes. You were meant to choose belief. Once belief is chosen and left alone, the Lord does the rest. This is why the greatest transformations often happen quietly. No dramatic declaration, no public moment of triumph, just an inner shift so subtle that the world has no choice but to rearrange itself around it. You may still encounter challenges, but they will no longer feel threatening. Because fear is what gives problems their power, and fear dissolves in the presence of trust. When trust becomes your resting place, nothing can truly overwhelm you. You begin to understand that life is not something to survive, it is something to cooperate with. And cooperation is effortless when you stop resisting. You will find yourself doing less, but accomplishing more, speaking less, but being heard more clearly, trying less, but receiving more naturally. This is not coincidence, it is alignment expressing itself. The law has always been working. The only thing that changed is that you stopped blocking it. You stopped sending mixed messages. You stopped planting and uprooting. You stopped declaring faith and feeding fear. You chose one truth and rested in it. That is mastery, not control, not force, not strain. Mastery is knowing when to step aside, and once you do, life steps forward. So now, there is nothing left to add, nothing left to improve, nothing left to chase. Only something to allow. Allow the night to work. Allow the unseen to arrange. Allow the law to complete what it has already begun. You do not need to check on it. You do not need to worry about it. You do not need to protect it. What is impressed is already being expressed. The seed is in the soil, the roots are forming, the harvest is inevitable. Your only responsibility now is peace, and peace is not something you create, it is something you stop disrupting. So stop, rest, release. Do nothing after this, and let life prove to you, quietly, gently, unfailingly, that miracles were never meant to be forced. They were meant to be received. And as you receive, you will notice something else quietly changing. Your relationship with time begins to soften. You are no longer racing the clock, no longer measuring progress by urgency, no longer feeling behind. When trust takes root, time stops feeling like an enemy, it becomes an ally. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that timing is not something you control, it is something you align with. What once felt late now feels precise. What once felt delayed now feels protected. You begin to see that many things did not arrive earlier because you were not ready to receive them without fear. And fear would have distorted the gift, so life waited, not to punish you, but to spare you. This realization alone can heal years of regret. You stop asking, why didn't this happen sooner? And begin to feel, now is right. When you do nothing, impatience loses its grip. Because impatience is rooted in distrust. Trust dissolves it completely. You are no longer in conflict with the present moment, and when conflict ends, power returns. Power does not shout, it does not rush, it does not prove. It rests. From that rest, inspired action emerges naturally, not forced, not frantic. Clear, simple, effective. You may suddenly feel moved to take a step you had avoided or stop taking one that never felt right. This is not inconsistency, this is guidance. Guidance becomes audible only when the noise quiets. You have been guided all along, but fear kept interrupting the signal. Now the signal comes through cleanly, and you trust it, not because you understand it fully, but because it feels calm. Calm is the signature of alignment. Anxiety always demands urgency. Alignment never does. So when you feel rushed, pause. When you feel pressured, stop. Those are signs that you are about to interfere again. Return to stillness. Say inwardly, I have already given the order, and then step back. There is great strength in stepping back. The world teaches you that strength looks like effort, but real strength looks like restraint. It is easy to panic. It is easy to overthink. It is easy to meddle. It is far more powerful to remain calm. Calm is not passive, it is deliberate. It is the decision to trust what cannot be rushed. When you live this way, even uncertainty changes its character. It no longer feels like danger. It feels like openness. You understand that not knowing is not a threat. It is an invitation for the unseen to move in ways you could not plan. This is where life becomes generous. Generosity requires space, and space is created when you stop filling it with fear. The universe does not respond to neediness, it responds to clarity. Neediness says, I am missing something. Clarity says, I am ready. Doing nothing is clarity. It says, I have spoken. I trust the response. And trust always invites a response. You may notice that your conversations change, your tone softens, your reactions slow. People feel it. They respond differently because you are no longer projecting urgency or lack. You are projecting presence. Presence is magnetic. Opportunities are drawn to it. Solutions gather around it. Not because you are trying to attract anything, but because nothing is repelling them anymore. Resistance repels, relaxation receives. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight. Life does not open to force, it opens to permission. And permission is given when you stop insisting. You may feel moments of old fear surface again. That does not mean you have failed. It means the habit is losing its grip. Let the fear pass without commentary, without engagement. Do not fight it. Do not analyze it. Let it move through and dissolve. Fighting fear feeds it, ignoring it starves it. And as fear weakens, trust becomes effortless. Eventually, you realize you are no longer practicing trust. You are living it. At that point, doing nothing is no longer a technique. It is your natural state. And from that state, miracles no longer feel rare. They feel normal. Not because life became extraordinary, but because resistance ended. The extraordinary was always there, waiting for permission. So let this be the moment you stop interfering. Not forever, just for now. Let now be enough. Let the silence after belief complete the work. Do nothing after this, and allow life to show you in ways both subtle and unmistakable. That when you finally stop trying to control the current carries you exactly where you were meant to go. You may not even realize when the shift fully takes place. It often happens so gently that there is no moment to point to and say, "Here it changed." You simply notice one day that you are no longer bracing, no longer preparing for disappointment, no longer holding your breath waiting for something to go wrong. And that is when you understand the struggle has ended. Not because everything is perfect, but because fear no longer governs you. Fear is what makes life feel heavy. Fear is what makes every delay feel like danger. Fear is what turns uncertainty into suffering. When fear loosens its grip, life regains its natural rhythm. You stop mistaking silence for stagnation. You stop interpreting pauses as punishment. You stop assuming stillness means nothing is happening. Stillness is when the deepest movement occurs. Just as the earth rests between seasons, just as the night prepares the dawn, your life also requires moments where nothing appears to move. These moments are not empty, they are pregnant with outcome, but only if left undisturbed. You cannot rush gestation, you cannot demand bloom before its hour, you cannot pull fruit from the branch before it is ripe. And yet, this is what anxiety tries to do. Anxiety tries to force timing, faith allows timing. Doing nothing is faith in action. It is saying, I trust the intelligence that governs growth. That intelligence does not miss details, it does not forget intentions, it does not misplace outcomes. It works with precision far beyond conscious thought. Your conscious mind sees fragments, the deeper mind sees the whole. That is why surrender feels like relief, because you are finally handing control back to the part of you that knows more. You have been trying to solve with a tool that was never meant to carry the weight. The conscious mind is a messenger, not a manager. Its role is to choose the direction, not to supervise every step. Once the direction is set, its highest service is silence. This is why overthinking creates exhaustion, because you are asking the wrong part of the mind to do the work. The deeper intelligence does not think, it knows, and knowing does not require effort. When you stop thinking your way forward, you begin to feel your way forward. Feeling here does not mean emotion, it means inner certainty, that quiet sense of, this is right, even when logic cannot explain why. That is guidance. Guidance does not shout, it does not rush you, it does not argue. It waits until you are quiet enough to hear it. So if you have felt blocked, it was never because the way was closed. It was because the noise was too loud. Doing nothing turns down the volume. And when the noise fades, direction becomes obvious, not dramatic, not complicated, obvious. You suddenly see what you could not see before, not because it was hidden, but because fear kept your eyes fixed elsewhere. Fear always points backward or too far ahead. Trust brings you back to now, and now is where power lives. Power does not live in regret. It does not live in anticipation. It lives in presence. Presence is what allows life to meet you. When you are fully present, you stop chasing the future, and the future starts moving toward you. This is not poetry, it is law. What you pursue, you imply is absent. What you allow, you acknowledge as available. Availability invites arrival. So when you do nothing, you are not giving up on your desire. You are removing the signal of lack. You are saying, I know this is possible. And the subconscious responds immediately to that knowing. It begins to align circumstances without resistance. You may still feel moments of impatience, that is human. But impatience loses its authority when trust is deeper. You notice it and let it pass. You do not obey it. You do not rush to satisfy it. You let it dissolve on its own. This is maturity of faith, not blind optimism, not denial, but steadiness. Steadiness is what allows miracles to stabilize instead of collapse. Many people experience brief breakthroughs that do not last because they rush back into fear the moment something improves. They grip the outcome again. They start guarding it. They begin worrying about losing it. And in doing so, they reverse the process. But when you remain at rest, what arrives stays, because it is supported by harmony, not anxiety. Harmony sustains, fear destabilizes. So the work now is simple, not easy, but simple. Each time the urge to control arises, choose stillness instead. Each time the mind demands reassurance, offer it silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is confidence without words. Confidence tells the subconscious, I trust you to finish what you have started. And the subconscious always honors trust. It cannot betray it. It is built to respond to it. So you are safe to rest. Nothing will fall apart because you stopped worrying. Nothing will be lost because you stopped chasing. In fact, the opposite happens. Things begin to come together, quietly, naturally, in their proper order. This is the miracle that effort can never produce. Not because effort is wrong, but because effort without trust becomes resistance. And resistance is the only thing that blocks flow. Now, allow yourself to end here. Do not add to this moment. Do not question it. Do not test it. Let it be complete. You have already done enough. Do nothing after this. And allow life, patient, intelligent, unfailing, to show you how perfectly it knows what it is doing. And when life begins to show you not all at once, not with spectacle, but with quiet consistency, you may be tempted to wonder why it ever felt so difficult. Why you carried so much weight alone. Why you believed effort was love. Why you thought control was safety. That understanding will come gently, without blame, without regret. Because clarity never condemns, it only reveals. You will see that nothing was wrong with you. Nothing was missing. Nothing was broken. You were simply trying to do the work of a law that never required your labor. And now that you have stepped aside, the law can do what it has always done best: arrange, balance, restore. This is when gratitude arises naturally, not forced, not practiced. It arises because peace feels real again. You no longer need to convince yourself that things will be okay. You feel it, and feeling is always stronger than thought. The subconscious responds to feeling instantly, which is why calm conviction is more powerful than endless affirmations. One moment of true peace outweighs years of anxious effort. So if you feel calm now, if your breath is slower, if your mind is quieter, that is not nothing. That is the shift. Everything that follows grows from here. Do not rush away from it. Do not dilute it with noise. Let this stillness be enough. The law has received the impression. The process is underway. Your role now is simply to live, to eat without worry, to sleep without bracing, to move through your day without rehearsing fear. When old habits surface, meet them with kindness, not resistance. You are not erasing them, you are outgrowing them. And growth does not require force, it requires space. Space is created when you do nothing, not nothing in the outer world, but nothing in the inner world that contradicts trust. That is the difference. You still show up, you still act when moved, you still participate in life, but you no longer drag anxiety into every moment. And that changes the quality of everything you touch. Even ordinary moments begin to feel lighter, because they are no longer burdened by expectation. Expectation is another form of pressure. Trust releases it. When expectation fades, appreciation grows, and appreciation is fertile ground. Life responds generously to those who are no longer demanding. Demand implies lack, trust implies fulfillment. The law always answers implication. So implication matters more than words. You may speak less now, but what you hold within speaks clearly. And the law listens to what you hold, not what you say. This is why silence after belief is so powerful. It is unambiguous. It says, I know. And knowing needs no explanation. You have reached the point where effort would only disrupt. So stop here. Let this be the end of seeking. Let this be the beginning of receiving. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, receiving begins the moment you stop reaching. So rest in this moment, carry it gently with you. Do nothing after this, and allow life, steady, intelligent, and kind, to complete what you no longer need to manage. There is a quiet confidence that begins to grow when you no longer feel the need to prove anything to life. You stop measuring yourself against outcomes. You stop asking whether you are doing enough. You begin to feel grounded in something deeper than results. That grounding is not indifference. It is assurance. Assurance that whatever needs to unfold will unfold in its proper sequence. Assurance that you are not late to your own life. Assurance that nothing essential can miss you. When this assurance settles in, comparison fades. You no longer watch others with envy or urgency. Their timing is theirs, yours is yours, and the law never confuses the two. You realize that much of your suffering came from trying to live in someone else's rhythm, trying to force seasons that were not yours. But now, you return to your own pace, your breath deepens, your body relaxes, your thoughts slow down, and in that slowing, something remarkable happens. You begin to enjoy the present again, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer withholding peace until resolution arrives. Peace is no longer a reward. It is your starting point. From peace, everything becomes clearer. You notice what feels aligned and what does not. You feel when to move and when to wait. Waiting no longer feels like stagnation, it feels like preparation. Preparation without tension. This is the state in which life gives its best. Not when you are desperate, not when you are frantic, but when you are receptive. Receptivity is quiet strength. It does not push, it does not demand, it allows. And allowance is powerful because it removes resistance. Resistance is the only thing that makes the path feel heavy. When resistance ends, the path reveals itself. Sometimes it reveals itself through a clear opportunity, sometimes through a gentle nudge, sometimes through something falling away that no longer belongs. And because you are no longer gripping tightly, you let it go without fear. You understand now that loss and redirection are not punishments. They are corrections. Corrections made by an intelligence that sees farther than you do. You no longer take them personally. You take them wisely. This is maturity of faith. It is not blind hope. It is seasoned trust. Trust that has learned through experience that force creates friction and surrender creates flow. You may still act, you may still choose, you may still decide, but you decide from clarity, not panic. And decisions made from clarity always carry less regret, because they are aligned, not reactive. Life becomes less exhausting when you stop trying to outrun it. You discover that you are not meant to chase your future, you are meant to prepare yourself to receive it. Preparation does not mean worry, it means openness. Openness is the willingness to let go of how you think things must happen. And when you let go of the how, you make room for outcomes better than what you imagined. Many blessings are missed because they do not arrive in familiar packaging. But now you recognize them, because fear is no longer filtering your perception. You see clearly, and clarity allows gratitude to arise even before the destination is reached. Gratitude stabilizes what is coming. It says, "I trust this direction." The law responds to that trust by reinforcing it. Momentum builds quietly, not with urgency, not with stress, with inevitability. You feel less urgency to explain yourself to others, less need to justify your pace. You are no longer in competition with life. You are in cooperation with it. And cooperation feels like support. Support feels like being carried rather than dragged. You may notice that problems which once consumed you now feel manageable. Not because they disappeared, but because you are no longer facing them alone. You have stepped out of the way, and in doing so, you allowed something greater to step in. This is the moment when faith becomes lived experience. Not a concept, not a philosophy, but a way of being, a way of moving through the world without constant resistance. You stop asking life to prove itself, and life begins to reveal itself. So stay here. Do not rush to the next thought. Do not hurry to the next worry. Let this calm become familiar. Let it teach you that nothing needs to be forced. Do nothing after this, and allow life, steady, intelligent, and perfectly timed, to continue unfolding in ways that confirm what you now know to be true. And as this way of being settles into you, you may notice that even your questions begin to change. You no longer ask, "What if it fails?" You ask, "What is life showing me now?" Curiosity replaces fear, attention replaces anxiety. This is a profound shift. Fear looks ahead and imagines loss. Attention stays here and notices guidance. When you are attentive, you stop missing the small openings life offers every day. Openings that were always there, but obscured by worry. A conversation that feels lighter, an idea that arrives without strain. A sense of knowing when to pause or proceed. These are not random, they are signals. Signals you can now hear because the noise has quieted. You begin to trust yourself again, not the anxious self that tries to control everything, but the deeper self that knows when something is right. This trust in yourself is not separate from trust in life. They are the same thing. When you trust life, you trust the intelligence moving through you. And when you trust that intelligence, you stop doubting every impulse, stop second guessing every decision, stop asking others to confirm what you already feel. This does not make you rigid, it makes you responsive. Responsive minds adjust naturally, rigid minds break under pressure. By doing nothing, you become flexible again. Flexibility is strength. It allows you to move with circumstances instead of against them. It allows you to adapt without panic. You no longer need guarantees before taking a step. You no longer need certainty before trusting the process. Certainty grows as you walk, not before. This is another quiet truth many never learn. Waiting for certainty keeps you frozen. Trust creates certainty through movement. But movement guided by trust is gentle. It does not rush. It does not force. It feels natural. And when something feels natural, you do not exhaust yourself doing it. Exhaustion is the sign of resistance. Ease is the sign of alignment. This does not mean everything becomes effortless. It means effort is no longer wasted. You stop spending energy on worry. You stop spending energy on mental battles that solve nothing. That energy returns to you. You feel more present in your body, more grounded in your breath. You begin to experience moments of simple contentment, moments that do not depend on achievement. These moments are not distractions from your goals. They are the foundation of them. From contentment, creativity flows. From creativity, solutions emerge. And solutions that emerge organically last longer than those forced into place. You may notice that people around you respond differently. They sense your calm. Calm invites honesty. Calm invites cooperation. You are no longer broadcasting urgency or lack. You are broadcasting stability. Stability is attractive. It draws opportunities without effort. It draws support without asking. Not because you are manipulating anything, but because resistance is no longer pushing things away. You have stopped sending conflicting signals. You are no longer saying, "I trust," while feeling afraid. You are embodying trust. And embodiment is what the law responds to most strongly. The law does not listen to words alone. It listens to the state you live from. When your state is calm, life mirrors calm. This is why peace is productive. It clears the way for intelligent action. Action taken from peace has direction. Action taken from fear has confusion. You may still face decisions, but decisions feel lighter now. You are not deciding to escape fear. You are deciding to follow clarity. There is a vast difference between the two. Escaping fear narrows your options. Following clarity expands them. So let clarity lead. Clarity does not demand immediate answers. It unfolds gradually, step by step, and each step confirms the next. This is how trust deepens, not through theory, but through lived experience. Each time you do nothing instead of panicking, and things still work out, something inside you settles permanently. You no longer need to be convinced, you know, and knowing changes everything. You stop asking life to prove itself. You move forward assuming it will support you. And that assumption becomes reality. Assumptions shape experience. When you assume struggle, you find it. When you assume support, you notice it everywhere. Support was always present, but fear blinded you to it. Now your eyes are open. You see help where you once saw obstacles. You see timing where you once saw delay. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering unnecessarily. Caring guided by trust is gentle. Caring guided by fear is heavy. Choose gentleness. Gentleness does not weaken intention. It strengthens endurance. You can walk farther without strain, and the path unfolds naturally beneath your feet. So remain here. Do not rush ahead mentally. Do not drag the past into this moment. Stay with the calm you have touched. It is not fragile. It does not need protecting. It grows stronger the less you interfere. Do nothing after this, and allow the intelligence that governs life, patient, precise, and unwavering, to continue revealing step by step just how well it knows the way. And as the days pass, you may begin to notice that what once triggered fear no longer holds the same power. The same circumstances may appear, but your response is different. You pause instead of panic. You breathe instead of brace. You listen instead of rush. This is how you know the shift is real. Transformation is not measured by how life looks, but by how you meet it. When you meet life with calm, life meets you with cooperation. You are no longer fighting reality, and because you are no longer fighting it, reality stops fighting back. This is not resignation, it is wisdom. Wisdom knows when effort adds value and when effort becomes interference. You begin to sense this difference intuitively. You know when to act and when to wait. Waiting no longer feels like helplessness. It feels like confidence. Confidence that says, "I don't need to rush what is already unfolding." You discover that patience is not passive. Trust that the unseen is not idle. Trust that silence is not absence. Silence is preparation. Preparation for clarity. Preparation for alignment. Preparation for the next right step. And the next step always arrives at the right moment, never early, never late. You stop blaming yourself for past timing. You stop judging yourself for delays. You realize that many things had to fall away before others could arrive. And because you are no longer resisting loss, loss transforms into liberation. You feel lighter not because you gained something, but because you released what was never meant to stay. This is another quiet miracle of doing nothing. You stop clinging to what exhausts you, and life responds by offering what supports you. Support shows up as ease, as cooperation, as moments where things simply work out. Not magically, but lawfully. The law of non-resistance is always at work. When you resist less, life flows more. You may still have desires, but they no longer feel desperate. They feel possible. Possibility replaces pressure. Pressure collapses vision. Possibility expands it. You start to imagine without anxiety, to hope without tension. This is the state where creation begins. Creation does not arise from force. It arises from openness. Openness says, I am available for what is meant for me. Availability invites alignment. Alignment invites outcomes that feel natural rather than forced. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to life. You trust that it understands you, and it does, because the intelligence you are trusting is the same intelligence that formed you. There is nothing foreign about this cooperation. It is a return to ease, a return to flow, a return to trust. You may still face uncertainty, but uncertainty no longer feels hostile. It feels spacious enough for something new to emerge. And because you are not filling that space with fear, what emerges surprises you in the best way. Surprises are not threats anymore. They are invitations to grow without strain. You grow naturally now, like a tree reaching for light, not because it forces itself, but because it knows where to go. That knowing is now alive in you. And it grows stronger each time you choose stillness over struggle. Each time you do nothing instead of interfering, you reinforce the pattern of trust. Eventually, trust becomes automatic, and when trust is automatic, life feels guided, not controlled, not chaotic guided. You stop asking, what if everything goes wrong, and begin to live as though things are quietly being handled. Because they are. Handled by an intelligence that does not panic, handled by a law that does not fail. Your only task now is to stay out of the way. That is not a burden. It is freedom, freedom from constant vigilance, freedom from endless correction, freedom to be present. Presence is where peace lives, and peace is where miracles begin, not loud miracles, not dramatic ones, but real ones, the kind that last. So if you find yourself wanting to do more, say less. If you find yourself wanting to control, release instead. If you find yourself wanting certainty, rest in trust. You have already set the law in motion. Now let it work. Do nothing after this, and allow life, steady, wise, and unfailing, to continue showing you, moment by moment, just how effortlessly things can fall into place when you finally stop trying to force them. And over time, you may realize something that once seemed impossible to believe. That the peace you were searching for was never waiting at the end of the journey. It was waiting at the end of resistance. You do not arrive at peace by fixing every detail of life. You arrive at peace by trusting life enough to stop fixing what is not yours to fix. This is when a deep sense of safety begins to take root. Not because everything is predictable, but because you are no longer afraid of the unknown. The unknown no longer feels like a threat. It feels like potential. Potential that does not need your anxiety to unfold. You start to feel supported in ways you cannot explain logically. A sense that you are not alone in your decisions. A sense that something unseen is coordinating on your behalf. This is not fantasy. It is alignment made visible through experience. Alignment feels like being met halfway by life. You take one small step without fear, and the next step appears. You make one calm decision, and circumstances rearrange to support it. This is how trust teaches itself. It does not demand blind belief. It reveals itself through gentle confirmation. Each confirmation strengthens the next. Soon, you stop needing reassurance altogether. You begin to expect harmony. Expectation rooted in calm is powerful. It tells the subconscious, this is normal. This is how life works for me. And the subconscious, obedient and exact, begins to make that expectation your reality. You no longer feel surprised when things resolve. You feel aligned. This is a subtle but profound shift. Surprise implies uncertainty. Alignment implies understanding. You understand now that life is not random. It responds. It responds to your inner state far more than your outer effort. When your inner state is peaceful, life mirrors peace. When your inner state is trusting, life mirrors support. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are cultivating a state. And from that state, outcomes flow naturally. This is why doing nothing is not inactivity. It is choosing the correct cause. The cause is always within. The effect is always without. When you correct the cause and then step back, the effect must follow. It is law. You may notice that you recover faster from setbacks now, not because setbacks vanish, but because you no longer personalize them. You see them as adjustments, not verdicts. Adjustments refine direction, verdicts create fear. Fear is no longer your lens. And without fear, even challenges lose their sting. They become information, guidance, feedback, not punishment. This perspective alone changes everything. Life stops feeling adversarial. It starts feeling instructional. An instruction given without fear is easy to follow. You are no longer fighting the lesson. You are learning from it. Learning does not require struggle. It requires attention. Attention that is calm. Attention that is present. That is what you have now. You may not always remember to rest. Old habits may try to return. But you will notice them sooner. And when you notice them, you will smile instead of panic, because you know now what works. You know that effort did not bring peace. Rest did. You know that control did not create harmony. Trust did. You know that chasing did not produce fulfillment. Allowing did. This knowing cannot be unlearned. Once seen, it becomes part of you. And from this place, life becomes simpler, not smaller, not duller, but simpler, less mental noise, less inner conflict. More clarity, more ease. Ease does not mean nothing matters. It means nothing needs to be forced. And that distinction changes how you live. You begin to honor your energy. You stop spending it on worry. You invest it in presence instead. Presence enriches every experience. Even waiting becomes peaceful. Because waiting is no longer empty. It is filled with trust. Trust transforms waiting into readiness. Readiness is not impatience. It is openness without tension. And openness allows life to surprise you gently. You are no longer scanning for danger. You are noticing beauty. That alone is a miracle. So let this be your new rhythm. When doubt arises, pause. When fear whispers, be still. You do not need to argue with it. You do not need to defeat it. You simply do not need to follow it. Return to rest. Rest is where your power lives now. Not the power to control, but the power to trust. And trust, once established, carries you further than effort ever could. So remain here, do nothing after this, and allow life patient, precise, and infinitely wiser than fear to continue unfolding with a quiet confidence that proves, again and again, that when you stop trying to force miracles, they arrive on their own exactly when you are ready to receive them. And one day, without warning, you will look back and realize how far you've come. Not because you pushed harder, not because you figured everything out, but because you finally stopped standing in your own way. You will see that what once felt like chaos was actually order forming. What once felt like delay was protection. What once felt like loss was redirection. And you will understand that life was never working against you. It was waiting for you to trust it. Trust changes how you interpret everything. The same events that once frightened you now feel neutral. The same uncertainty that once caused panic now feels open. Nothing outside changed first, you did. This is the quiet miracle no one talks about. When your inner state changes, the outer world has no choice but to follow. Not immediately, not theatrically, but inevitably. The law never rushes. It never forgets. It never fails. It completes what it begins. You no longer feel the need to chase signs. Life itself becomes the sign. Every calm moment confirms alignment. Every peaceful breath affirms trust. You stop measuring progress by speed. You measure it by steadiness. Steadiness is the mark of true faith, not excitement, not intensity, but consistency without strain. When fear tries to return, it feels unfamiliar now, out of place. Because you have learned something deeper. You have learned that nothing meaningful is built in panic. And that realization alone rewrites your life. You begin to respect silence, to value rest, to protect your inner calm. Not because you are fragile, but because you finally understand your power. Your power is not in forcing outcomes. It is in choosing the state from which outcomes emerge. Choose fear, and life mirrors fear. Choose trust, and life mirrors support. This choice is available to you in every moment. You do not need to remember everything. You only need to remember this. Whenever you feel the urge to struggle, pause. Whenever you feel the need to control, release. Whenever you feel anxious about the future, return to now. Now is always safe, because now is where the law operates. The past cannot be changed by effort. The future cannot be controlled by worry. But the present can be aligned. Alignment in the present reshapes everything. So let this be your practice, not effort, but awareness. Awareness of when to step back, awareness of when to be still. The more you practice stillness, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you no longer call it doing nothing. You simply call it living. Living without constant tension, living without inner war, living in cooperation with a wisdom greater than fear. And from that cooperation, life unfolds with grace, not perfect, not painless, but guided. And guidance is enough, so stay with this knowing, carry it gently. Do not weaponize it, do not turn it into another task. Let it remain simple. You trusted, you rested, you allowed. That is all the law ever asked of you. Now let it answer. And the answer does not come as a single moment that announces itself. It comes as a series of gentle confirmations. A sense of ease where there was once tension, a solution that appears without strain, a door that opens without being forced. These confirmations do not shout, they reassure, they say quietly and steadily, you were right to let go. And each time you recognize one, your trust deepens, not because you are convincing yourself, but because experience is teaching you. Experience is the most honest teacher. It does not argue, it simply shows. You begin to live with a different posture toward life, less guarded, less defensive. You stop expecting struggle as the default. You stop assuming that ease must be earned through exhaustion. You learn that ease is the natural state when resistance ends. This does not mean life becomes effortless in appearance. It means effort is no longer heavy. There is a difference. Heavy effort drains you. Aligned effort supports you. Aligned effort feels guided. It feels timely. It feels right-sized. You no longer do things to escape fear. You do them because they feel appropriate. Appropriateness replaces urgency. Urgency always comes from fear. Appropriateness comes from clarity. Clarity is what emerges when you stop interfering. You are not meant to carry everything consciously. You are meant to cooperate unconsciously with a deeper order. That order has been active since before you learned to worry. It has always known how to balance growth with rest, movement with pause, action with silence. You are rediscovering that rhythm now, and once rediscovered, it begins to regulate your life naturally. Your sleep improves, your body softens, your thoughts become less compulsive. These are not side effects, they are signs. Signs that you are no longer fighting yourself. Inner conflict consumes more energy than any external challenge. When that conflict ends, strength returns without effort. You feel more capable, not because you are doing more, but because you are no longer wasting energy on fear. This is the quiet efficiency of trust. It simplifies everything. You start to see how much of your life was spent reacting to imagined futures, and you feel compassion for yourself, not regret, compassion. You were doing the best you could with what you believed at the time. Now you believe differently. Belief shapes behavior. Behavior shapes experience. And experience now begins to reflect calm instead of strain. You no longer measure your worth by productivity. You no longer measure progress by exhaustion. You begin to value alignment over achievement. Achievement without alignment feels empty. Alignment brings fulfillment even before the goal is reached. This is a secret many never learn. Fulfillment is not at the destination, it is in the way you travel. When you travel with trust, the destination meets you with grace. Grace is what effort cannot manufacture. Grace arrives when you stop demanding and start allowing. Allowing does not weaken intention. It strengthens it by removing resistance. You are no longer divided inside. Division creates delay. Unity creates flow. When your conscious choice and subconscious belief align, movement is inevitable. Nothing needs to be pushed. So if there is one thing to remember as this continues to unfold, it is this. Do not return to the habit of interference. When you feel tempted to check, pause. When you feel tempted to worry, rest. You are not being irresponsible, you are being precise. Precision means knowing when to act and when to be still. Stillness is action at the deepest level. It is action that instructs the law without contradiction. You have given the instruction. Now you allow execution, and execution is already underway. The universe does not forget, the subconscious does not delay. They respond faithfully to what you impress and then leave alone. So leave it alone. Live your life, enjoy what is here, be present with what is real. Presence keeps you aligned. Alignment keeps you supported, and support makes everything else lighter. You do not need to wait for proof to feel safe. Safety grows from trust, not evidence. Evidence follows trust. This is the order, always has been, so let this moment close gently, not with excitement, not with anticipation, but with calm acceptance. You have done enough. Do nothing after this. And allow life, quiet, intelligent, and unfailingly responsive, to continue unfolding in a way that proves, without force or drama, that when you stop trying to make miracles happen, they arrange themselves naturally, as they always were meant to do. And now, there is nothing left to add, nothing left to reach for, nothing left to fix. This moment is complete. The seed has been planted, the instruction has been given, the impression has been received. From here, silence is not emptiness. It is confirmation. Confirmation that the law has accepted what you impressed upon it. Confirmation that the work has passed from effort to order. You do not need to carry it anymore. The future does not require your supervision. The outcome does not need your anxiety. The path does not need your force. Life knows how to move forward. It always has. And now you know how to let it. This is not the end of your journey. It is the end of resistance. From here, things unfold more simply, more gently, more truthfully. You will still live. You will still choose. You will still act when action is called for. But you will no longer act from fear. You will act from alignment, and alignment always feels like being carried instead of pushed. So when you leave this moment, leave it lightly. Do not clutch it. Do not analyze it. Let it work. If doubt arises, do nothing. If impatience whispers, do nothing. If fear tries to reclaim its place, do nothing. Return to the stillness you now recognize. Stillness is your anchor. Trust is your ground. You are not waiting for miracles anymore. You are allowing them. And allowing is enough. Life will take it from here. Quietly, precisely, faithfully. Do nothing after this, and watch how everything you stopped forcing finally falls into place.